All right, welcome to the Yeshua's King Ministries. This is our second sermon. Um, I told you that we were going to talk about this and this particular subject matter, and you're gonna. I have a feeling you're gonna love it because it's going to answer a lot of questions. Now, what do we call? I like to call the hell formula. Okay, this is just like is the most destructive formula you could ever imagine. And it ends up you being the one who's destroying things. Happens every single time. I watch it. I get involved in it myself. And then realize I'm in it. And then you got to get out once you recognize it. So here it is. It's called the interruption and form a loop. That's what he does. All the demons do, and this is their greatest weapon that they have. They interrupt and form a loop. They create lies to form a loop. We were watching Alex Jones the other day, and during his broadcast, he says the same thing three separate times. He got pulled into a loop, and then the interruption was Alex Jones. So I sat there and watched him. His name was interrupting him, interrupting his thoughts, and then formed into a loop and repeated himself three separate times over 15 minutes. Trump, a lot of times his interruptions are his family. He'll do that. Feel free to speak if this happens to you, because you'll sit there and all you hear is this like a whisper in the back of your head. You'll get interrupted. You don't realize how. It goes through all kinds of things. It could be a dog, could be a cat in the room. It could be anything, but you could be having a good conversation with someone, and then all of a sudden there's a small interruption. There's a phone click, or that there's this or that, and then you'll end up into a loop, talking about the same thing over and over, not realizing that that's what you're doing. It's the creepiest and weirdest thing you've ever witnessed once you see it and you see people doing it. Um, a lot of times people will do this. I used to have it. It was the dog. I would in the morning I would get up and do my thing, okay, but during that time I'm interrupted by the dog. And their loop is there's something wrong with the dog. So I start worrying, and it will go back and forth like this in a loop. It will every day it will go from there's something wrong to she's going to die. Every single day it would do that. I didn't realize I was doing it every day because each and every time I get the loop for some reason feels um new, like you're never talked to you because they blank you out and then and loop you into this it could be, it could be whatever. For instance, what do you worry about on a daily basis? Are you truly the one worried? Do you even care about what you're worried about or what you think you're worried about? Do you even care about the subject matter? Or is somebody talking you into caring about a goofy subject matter that will loop you on a daily basis? It throws you into a loop. Meaning you'll think about it every single day. Is there anything that happens like that? If anybody wants to, you know, fess up, go right ahead. It's on here. So if you are repeating yourself on a daily basis and you're going through The same type of worry, and it doesn't make any sense as to what you're worried about. You've been interrupted and you've been thrown into a loop. They will literally create lies all around you that form the loop, that form you into a repeat. When I mean by a loop, I mean it's repetitious, very repetitious. There was no reason for you to think that the dog was going to die that day. There's no reason to think that the dog's sick. There's no reason to think of any of these things. But this is what they do. And this is how they get you off the narrow way. For instance, Alex, you there?
Yes.
Okay. We're getting a lot of feedback. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Um, when you didn't have a job, what happened?
What are you referring to? Like stressing out about money
Yeah,
and
any on a
thinking
day,
about,
yeah, on a daily basis.
yeah, you're thinking about, how you're going to earn some cash to eat.
Did it work itself out?
It eventually did. Yeah.
What you got
I'm sure that
thrown,
was,
you were thrown into a loop every day. You were interrupted. In other words, you wanted to wake up with no worries and just completely relaxed. Hey, you didn't have to work. You were pretty good, right? Everything's good. You got the day off. You could actually sit there and rest a little bit if you wanted to. You could chill out. You didn't starve, but all these things were there. I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to be a failure. I am a failure because I'm unemployed. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. What am I going to do here? What am I going to do there? All those worries were obviously taken care of by Yeshua because there you are. You were fine after this. You were fine. No problem. And it all worked out. No problem. He had your back. He was taking care of it. But all these other things will be in an interruption. The interruption is I don't have a job right now. And just so everybody knows, he was laid off. He didn't get fired or anything like that. He was just laid off because of the company was not making as much money. That's all it was. So, and then he had, oh crap, I got to go find something else to do. Okay, besides this job. Okay. So, um, there was nothing like that. But what were the details? What was whispering in your ear?
a lot of what you were saying, just, you know, how am I going to make enough money? Going to run out of money? You know, um, there's going to be all these expenses that I'm going to have with moving, and I'm trying to start a business. I need money to make, to be able to get things going. Just all these different scenarios you're running
Was
through.
it every day?
I wouldn't say every day, but some days I found work, just picking up odd jobs and stuff. So, those days are a little less stressful, I'd say. Yeah.
That left the loop, right? In other words, you didn't get stuck in the loop.
Right.
And the loop is, that loop of worry,
Yep.
insecurity. Uh, Imagine, and everybody goes, "Oh, my imagination is just going crazy." Folks, that's not your imagination. That's somebody literally manipulating you that you can't see. Sometimes you can't even feel them around you, but they will do this over and over and over. And then they go, "Well, who's they?" The demons that are still here since they fell. There was a guy on YouTube. He actually had a filter he used where he was able to see the demons. and the streets and everywhere else, all in LA. There was one that was like 120 foot tall in the middle of Los Angeles. It was just sitting there on the street, about 120 feet tall, and it would manipulate things around there. Just they would interrupt you. In other words, they would create a cause and interruption in your thought patterns. If you were feeling pretty good today, you're having a great mood, blah, 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 they would interrupt that. They pull something in. It's like pulling a rope and then throw you into a loop of fear. Unknown, fear of the unknown. And some of the worst case scenarios that you can find are people that are talking to themselves in the street. This thing's telling me to kill myself. This thing's telling me to kill people. This thing's telling me this. That's a demon. Those people aren't crazy. They don't have psychological problems. They don't have um, things like that like their brain is not wired right. Most people have that same issue all the time, and you'll notice it all the time. You'll go through the same arguments, the same scenario that day. Okay, it's the same thing over and over and over and over. You will have no issues whatsoever with repeating it. And especially if you're having fear issues or insecurity issues, anything like that. It's not necessarily you. That's the whole point. I think it's being created, not because I've lived it, it's being created for you. And it's being created so that you will fail that day, that you will look crazy, and that you will um, look obsessive compulsive. And the reason why I asked about Alex is because Alex is the type of guy that will make sure that bill is paid. He'll make sure this is done and that's done. And he's anal retentive about it. I just knew that. And so I knew when you didn't have a job, that was a perfect time to start putting Alex into a loop. Interrupt with this or interrupt. You just wake up and all of a sudden, boom, bam, it hits your head, right? Oh, I don't have a job. I don't have this. I don't have that. And the loop is what bills can I pay now or not pay? I don't know which way I can go. What can I do? But I'm not going to have this. So I've got to start looking around for work. I got to start doing this and blah, 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 blah. And everybody will say, oh, well, that's normal. We all do that when, especially when they're worried about bills and things like that. No, a lot of people don't care. A lot of people are not worried about that. They have full faith in Yeshua and they look towards him, basically stating, well, Yeshua, what do you have in store for me today? If it's not a job, it's got to be something else. I look forward to what you have so I can learn from it. And it's that way every day with him. So when someone, if you're sitting there and you're getting interrupted, if you're having a good conversation with your wife or husband, boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're just talking back and forth, da da da, and it gets into, it feels like you've been interrupted, or something clicks in the room, or something changes, and all of a sudden the subject matter changes to something that's worrisome, fearful, a problem, or a perceived problem, anything like that, you just got interrupted and thrown into a loop. This happens to politicians. This happens to world leaders. You'll be sitting there and you're solving a problem and you got it solved. Then all of a sudden, someone will come in, interrupt the whole thing, and then create a loop with a problem we've never been able to solve. Who is going to solve the problem between the Jews and the Palestinians. It's in a loop since 1956. It's not going to be solved. It will never be solved unless one party is completely wiped out. They've been fighting ever since I can remember. And I was born in the 60s. Back and forth, constant. You can say, oh, the Palestinian and Israelis are fighting and blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's big news. That's a loop. That problem will never be solved. How many politicians? How many politicians have come up and say, well, we're going to lower taxes. Sure you are. Yeah, taxes are too high. Oh yeah, that's a loop. Same problem. That's an interruption and it goes down. No one has ever lowered taxes. It's a loop. It's a problem that can't be solved. Better education. Really? You're going to go better education. How many times have that gone into a loop? You hear that from who? Politicians, usually Democrats. Same talking points. You have um, better schools, lower taxes, more jobs. Those are three talking points that are loops. Yeah, we need lower taxes. Yeah, well, I would love to have a better job. And you'll sit there and talk about it and talk about it as if you had never talked about it before. And you speak about it every 4 to 6 years because that's when the election cycle comes in, and then they throw in a loop. But if you want to talk about the real problems, that person is I'm sorry to say, is a racist, white supremacist. Then they say, well, he's just an interruption. He's mean. He worries about, he doesn't care about people's feelings because you're actually solving problems. Have you ever noticed when somebody wants to get in and says, I'm going to solve your problems? We're going to talk about things you've never talked about before, and it all starts happening. And then everybody tries to do what? They try to stop it because they're comfortable in the loop that they were given. Lower taxes. Yeah. Well, I'm going to come in and lower your taxes. You're a racist. What? Because actually do it, right? He's going to actually do that, is lower the taxes. And I think he's going to get rid of the income taxes. Anybody ever realize that? Because you've been thrown in a loop that you have to pay taxes. And you can even challenge it and say there's no law that says that you have to file or pay taxes. There's no law there. Even the IRS has said there's no law, doesn't exist. But what happens? Interruption. Boom. Now all your streets are going to go down, right? There's your loop. You were interrupted with no law for taxes. You were interrupted with that. And then it turns around to say there's a loop there. So the loop is, well, the streets are going to go down. We're going to have potholes. We're not going to get we're not going to get any services. That's what's going to happen. No services, no nothing. There's your loop. You'll be scared in that loop. And it deals with fear, what you won't have. When if you does anybody realize that your income taxes don't even pay a dime, 1% towards anything? Basically, that just goes to the bankers and they just go have fun with it, like vacations and little investments here and there and all that. It doesn't even pay the interest on the national debt. at all. So you have to realize these things that you worry about every day are practiced in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, there's still food in the grocery stores. What happens? Interruption. Well, let's interrupt that. Yeah, we've heard today that there's no going to be no food in the stores soon. The shelves will be empty. We all heard it. So what is it? What happens? You all heard you were interrupted. Now your whole life is interrupted, right? This is how the devil works. The whole life is interrupted, and there's no food on the shelves. What are we going to do? Ever since then, ever since I've heard that interruption, there's been food on the shelves. There was never an interruption. It was verbal. Somebody screwing with your head. Well, bread is going to be out. We're all going to be out of bread. I go down the bread aisle and I have like, I don't know, 20 choices of what kind of bread I want after I just heard the bread's going to be gone. So somebody gets sick with the flu. All of a sudden, we've got to buy all the toilet paper. That's a loop. People were worried about wiping their butts. That's what they worried about. They didn't worry about getting the flu. They worried about that they weren't going to be able to wipe. So it threw them all into a loop to keep buying toilet paper. And then they started investing in it and said, "Watch, when toilet paper runs out, then I'm going to have a bunch of toilet paper I can trade with." It was an investment. That's how bad it got. So what do? Okay, if someone's getting ready to do something, this is how the Democrats operate. If they're getting ready to do something nefarious, they will blame the other side. They'll interrupt, blame the other side, and put fear. Throw fear in there, so you end up in a loop. Interrupt, throw a lie, create a loop of lies. So now you're busy, and now you're not watching the guy that created the loop. You're watching the other side that is going to do it. That they're going to actually get this done. That's how that works. I've been watching this go for a long time when it was brought to my attention. This came from the set apart spirit and Yeshua. They both sat down and taught and told me and showed me the loop and the interruption. He said this is his greatest scheme, and he's relying on that what I called that health formula to win, and he's trying to knock the father off his throne, and he thinks that that's how he's going to get it done. He thinks it's a popularity contest. If he's more popular than the father, then people will somehow kind of vote him in on the father's throne. That's nuts. The father was never voted onto that throne. His creation cannot do that. The slave will never be greater than the master. The created will never be better or greater than the creator. Man cannot live by worshiping the creation or a creation of the creator. It doesn't work that way. And I'm not one of these, you know, what do you call them? Oh, shoot, New Agers that think that I call him creator. Okay, not that guy. I'm just making a point. And they do this over and over. And eventually it destroys that society. That's how they take the society down because What you're supposed to be doing is just going about what you do in the field. This is what you normally do in the work. You concentrate on what you do. Don't worry about anything else other than what you're doing. Don't let anybody interrupt you. Stay steady. Focus and concentrate on what you do on a daily basis. Don't let the devil come in and start turning your world upside down with fear and all that. I call it fear and lies. That's what he does. And I've been working on it since it came to my attention as to what he was doing. I've been working on focusing, concentrating every day. Don't worry about anything. Just keep going. Just keep moving. Yeshua is more than qualified to be who he is, to have all the power on earth and in heaven. It was given to him, and it's in good hands. The Father did it, and if the Father believes in him, I believe in him. I think he can do it, and he has been doing it. And I think he's more than qualified than anybody. So don't let them come in and interrupt. If you interrupt or get interrupted, this is what I would do just to be in the beginning. I keep a notepad next to me. And if you're talking about something that's important to you or to the direction of your life or whatever you're doing, I would and I got interrupted, write down where you were last, what you were talking about. Just write it down real quick. And guess what you can do? You can actually uninterrupt. You can do this. Someone comes in and interrupts, and you say, "Oh, hold on for a second." That stops them. And then you write down what you were talking about. Okay, go ahead. They've done forgot what they're getting ready to interrupt you with because it wasn't their interruption. It was someone speaking through them. People are unknowingly used as pawns in this little game. They think it's their idea that they're getting ready to interrupt you with, but it's not. You don't believe me? Just observe. Give it a try. Take a look at what you do. If you go to a place of work and you got people there, watch what they do. Watch how they interact. You're going to see that there's not a lot of production because all those people are being interrupted on a daily basis. So that is their formula. I hope that I have explained it well and clear. Okay. And it's called the hell formula. It's called interruption and form a loop. It never solves problems. That's the result. It will never solve an issue. The way you're going to go into that loop, it's never going to solve anything. It'll keep going and going and going. And you'll keep worrying about this problem because it's never been solved. But you can't get out of the loop of lies to solve the problem. Or it's a problem that doesn't even exist. It's a problem or loop of lies. The only way to get out of it is by reason. In other words, first of all, obviously pray. Ask Yeshua to pray for you to the Father. Second, Yeshua, please help me with this. I keep getting into this loop and I can't solve the problem. Ask him to show you through the set apart spirit or himself where the problem, if there is actually a problem, or if that problem is made up in your head. If it's made up in your head, there never was a problem. So you have to look at logic. I can say not reason, because man's reason is a little little what do you call, not all there, but you can use logic to see by deduction what the problem is, if there is any, and move on. In the first part, I was using asking Alex some questions, okay, but most of the problems he was worried about didn't even manifest. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Well, you can turn, yeah. Um, yeah. So none of they really didn't manifest. Those were made up in his head, but not by him. It was an influence. It was a whisper. And this is how these things, I call them things, many call them demons. This is how these things operate. They were very useful in heaven. They did serve for a long time. A third of them left. And when they did, they became things and useless. All they do is interrupt and form a loop. That's all they do, just to torment you because they hate you and they don't like you. But here's the thing, you've never done a thing to them. That's the weird part. And this is what they call evil, the very definition of evil. You don't do anything to solve, you didn't do anything to them. You're not attacking them, you never hurt them, blah, 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 blah. All they are is upset because they were not chosen. I remember Yeshua coming to me one time and he was very excited. He said, James, he says, they, the Father chose us. He chose us. He chose our kind. I remember him saying this. I've said this before and I'm going to say it, keep saying it again. Your kind has been chosen by our Father in heaven. Okay. Anything that's made differently has not been chosen. And then chosen for what? To gain the inheritance. And he found a way to get it delivered to you indirectly. And that's through who? Yeshua, our mediator. That is what the goal is. Interrupt, form a loop, never solve a problem. Interrupt, form a loop, never solve a problem. What's your problem? You want Yeshua to know you. And you don't want to do iniquity anymore, so you want to repent. So what? So you can become a part of his family, gain brothers and sisters, and share in the inheritance. That's it. It's that simple. And you can live a decent life. Not necessarily here. You can live it there in heaven. Have a decent existence. He's a good brother, and he does share. He shares. So thanks for listening. I hope you learned something today. This was the second sermon of the Yeshua is King Ministries. I hope you keep um, listening. We do appreciate it. I know I don't want to bring this up, but in a way, but because I don't monetize anything on YouTube. So if you could just do a follow on Rumble and then a subscribe on YouTube, I'd appreciate it. It when you have a lot of subscribers, people seem to go want to listen to, and then we want to get this message out. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.